Hello, all you vault dwellers out there. You are listening to Rereading, brought to you by Vault 420, recorded in the Coop. All right, all you vault dwellers and wastelanders out there. Welcome to Rereading. This is Harry Potter. I got everyone giggling at me now because I got my announcer voice on. But yeah, we're here with me, Ross, and I'm gonna pass it around the table to the next one.
Brett,
Rachel.
Leah.
And we're all here, just bored with the vault and decided to read some books. So let's dive into it, I guess. We read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, based on wherever you are in the world here. And we wanted to talk a little bit about our takeaways from these books. I think where we want to start off right away is talking about the big takeaway that we got reading this book. So if we want to start out with Rachel, just because I looked up at you, and that's, yep.
Appreciate you.
Yep, I appreciate you too, my lovely fiance Rachel.
I was like, why are you telling people?
That's what.
My biggest takeaway would not necessarily be a difference. It was more of a shock to myself. That when we got to the Mirror of Erised, I don't know if it was because like seeing it in print, or what it is not in the movie. Just speaking of that, it's desire backwards, and maybe I'm just a dumb fuck that didn't realize that when I read it in 4th grade or 5th grade or whatever, and then just never put it together at all. And then seeing that, I won't try to pronounce what's inscribed on the top, but backwards it says, "I show not your face, but your heart's desire."
and I didn't know that until you just said it at this table.
That's kind of why I
5
wanted to
minutes
start with
before
this
we
one, actually.
recorded.
Like,
so.
if that's common knowledge out in like the Potter universe, that's great for you. Like, I tip my hat to you. You're smarter than
That's honestly a deep dive, though. I wouldn't.
I
didn't know.
Yeah.
I read it just now and didn't even
question
I
it.
But
just
I,
skipped
like,
over that part.
read
Was
it.
like, can't pronounce it.
And
Yeah,
then
yep,
I-
exactly.
It's
Yep.
a different
so,
like
yeah.
gibberish language.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, that's some
But
other
I like
language.
read it,
Yep.
reread it, and then like
Yeah.
set the book down. Was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, that sure shit. That is exactly.
Well, you blew my mind before earlier this morning when you mentioned it to me. That's why I think
Yeah, I
it's
had
a
no
fun
idea.
thing to start on too.
It's so simple, and you're like, Jesus.
I could have read that 15,000 times, and you could have been like, "What is this?" And I would have been like, "Nope."
Yeah.
That's
So
not
I
a thing.
honestly and obviously, for, like those of you listening, hopefully you read the book. That's why you're listening. The Mirror Elrized, I think it's pronounced, right?
Erised.
Erized. See, I'm just thinking of desire now. I can't even. So, this mirror is what shows your deepest desire. So it makes sense that that's what would be said on top of it. But
Going off the mirror,
going-
he sees his whole family instead of just his
Not-
parents.
I wrote
Yes,
that down too.
yes.
Sees
If
his
we want to talk about a
grandparents.
change with that,
Yep.
I did not realize that in the
I didn't remember that either.
no,
From-
I did as soon as I read about him going in there. I remembered it right before it happened. I'm like, oh, I think there's more. Like he sees a bunch of people because at first he's scared, thinking that it works in a way that it shows you who can't be seen, who's
Like
invisible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he was like, oh my god, I'm in a room full of a bunch of people who are also invisible.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
and-
He like looks around.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then he feels around actually too, and realizes the woman he sees, who he notices has green eyes, that he can't feel her, and then he starts realizing who that woman is. So
His face.
well, and yeah, and it's crazy because the green eyes is another thing too in the movie that they take out, like they don't really have, and I think it's because try to find someone with green eyes, and then even the contacts, try to get a kid wearing contacts. Same reason why Hermione didn't have the teeth. Neville, I think, had the teeth. Like he wore something that made it look like his teeth looked the way they did. But I don't think that Hermione's never worked in the movies. And then Harry, obviously, he had the color eyes he had. So
yeah, that
no, and it's definitely one of those things that like even after reading and rereading and rereading, I didn't even notice it. It was you mentioning it. It's one of those things that I think it takes a keen eye to notice because, like you said, Leah, you see it, you're like, oh, another language. Let's just brush past this. Like, I don't know what this means. Like, and it's cool to see that you notice that. So
You're so smart.
you're so smart.
The smartest
Obviously
one.
not.
It's my fiance down there. All right. So next, why don't we talk about what Leah had?
My biggest thing that biggest shock I think was that the 150 points that were taken from Gryffindor from Professor McGonagall in the movie it was for the troll,
Yeah.
right? And in the book it's about an entire scene that we don't get in the movie at all, and it's about Norbert and him being sent back to Romania, and that being a whole other like with the oldest. No, he's the second oldest.
Second oldest
Charlie?
Weasley. Yep.
Charlie?
Charlie. Bill is the oldest, and then Charlie is second oldest.
So Charlie arranged for his friends to come meet with Harry and Hermione to help get Norbert out, and they end up getting caught by Filch, but then brought
Yes.
to
Brought to
Professor McGonagall,
McGonagall.
and then she decides I'm going to take 150 points. Now the
Which-
result of that
Yeah.
ended up being way more intense in the book
In the book.
than it was in the movie
Yep.
because Harry
lost it.
went from like everybody being obsessed with him. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, this is Harry Potter to this motherfucker lost us
Yeah.
150
Yep.
points. We are not going to win the House Cup anymore. And there were months of that. It felt like months.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was actually months.
Definitely was. If you
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
it like a school year as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yep. Because that's the
definitely
thing is,
was
especially
months.
in this one,
Yeah.
the school year gets breezed past pretty quickly because there's so much before and so much. Well, and even the amount they fit in at the end is crazy. But like in the one chapter, like it's nuts. Like it feels like it should be way more, but like in the beginning, there's so much setup for this story that the school year in this first book breezes by pretty quickly, and that's something we'll see more in the later years. Is we're going to hear more about the different seasons, the different things that happen there, the different events at Hogwarts, and as of right now, we got to hear about what was it, Halloween, Christmas. There was a couple events we got to hear about, so that was cool. But
Mhm.
I feel like I was outside. You saw little things in the movie, little nods of the hat to that. But
So it was months of them
picking
not,
on him.
yeah, like not like giving him the silent treatment.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Which-
that. Not he wasn't didn't
You
even
don't even
exist.
exist.
You know.
yeah.
Well,
Right, but that's how he was treated at the Dursley. So I can only imagine they don't even like talk about how hard that must have been because that's like he had a home at this point. He had created like Hogwarts started to feel like his home. He had said that in the book, and then he did something so astronomical that made everybody there, his whole new environment, treat him like the Dursley.
He was a
treated him.
And he
pariah
was and he
again,
was
yeah.
at war with himself over that,
Oh, yeah.
talking to himself about like
Right.
I'm not going to do any more adventures. I'm not going to
Yep.
be curious.
no,
Yeah.
he was very
And in the movie,
self-reflective.
and in the movie, he's not like that at all. They're just
Yeah.
like, go, go,
Yeah.
go. Let's
Yep.
figure this stuff out and
Yep.
get in the fucking chambers. You
Right.
know?
But in the book, yeah, it's just like it's more it's heavier.
Yep.
And you don't. I mean, so the fact that he went in and took another risk to go and try and get in front of who he thought was well, it was Voldemort, but he thought it was Snape to get the Sorcerer's Stone, and he decides, fuck it. If I get expelled, if nobody likes
Yep.
me, I would rather that because I've heard, and he didn't even know, he didn't experience it. All he did was hear how terrible Voldemort was, and he was going to risk everything.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
'Cause-
just the build up to that was so much more significant. Like he's really putting everything on the line.
Yeah.
It's not just because he's a Gryffindor. It's not just because he's brave. He's going to sacrifice this new life that he found here, his acceptance, to make sure Voldemort doesn't rise again.
yeah.
And it was a bigger thing in this book, and you don't see it in the movies. Like you don't see anyone like bragging on him or like disagreeing with him or thinking like anything bad of him until later.
Yeah.
You know, like you see that with like Seamus later on, you know, and
Mm.
but that's like what, like the fifth
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, because that's when Harry's all bruised.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "Ooh, shove it up your mother's ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I think, a big thing that felt like that was missing, that was built up a bit more. Like, not necessarily word for word, but what was included was just enough, like a little bit more for me to come to the own conclusion. Like, wow, that he was really sacrificing. Like everybody was treating him like how he was used to, and that would have been felt terrible. Like, I don't deserve this new
I'm right
home.
back
I
to
don't
this.
deserve.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of rolls into what I noticed too. And one of the things that I kind of took away from this was his own personal battles, just all along the whole thing, and the confidence he gained more is what I pulled away from it. overall. So I think that kind of plays into what you're talking about here. So I figured why not bring it up.
Yep.
And so what I really saw was just him coming from the Dursleys, and there was a reason why Dumbledore put him there, so that he wouldn't grow up in this celebrity. He wouldn't be a Malfoy. Because if he did grow up in that and got to be whatever and have all this money, whatever he had, you know what I mean, and this fame now, he would have grown up and probably been a monster of a person. Let's be real here. As adult eyes looking at that now, I think I get a little less mad about Dumbledore because we all know, as reading this once before, kind of what this leads into in the later parts of the series, and that's why coming at this with the eye I do now, I kind of did look at Dumbledore a little bit differently and how he handled it, and he took a very back approach with Harry to let him gain that confidence he needed to get. And we saw him gain that confidence as the year went on, losing it obviously when what you're talking about that event, but there were so many other things that like helped him gain that confidence. Seeing the other students struggling too that came from muggle-born families. When he was going in the whole time he was so worried, I'm going to be garbage. Everyone's going to be so much further along than I am. And like that self-doubt, 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 but that self-doubt is what gives him like a humbleness which he needed, and that's what Dumbledore, why he did what he did. And you get mad because like you look at the Dursleys and how they treated him, like that was horrible. You know, that really was like some of the worst experiences you can have. Really looking back, and we'll go chapter by chapter and kind of talk about little differences. But I think one of the big things you do see is how horrible that the Dursleys like treated him. And I know you mentioned that before while we were snacking on some stuff, and I think that's such a good thing to look at. Is that just yeah, it shows you the extremes that he went through all the way along, but in the end, like even winning that cup, like the house cup obviously fucked up, but they didn't win the cup for the Quidditch. The second game, which you don't hear about second or third game because you don't really hear about in the book neither, but we hear that it happened. But the second game we hear about, there's a physical fight that actually happens during that as well, which is something we can talk about a little later. But the speed that Harry gets that snitch for that second game is shows that this kid is capable of living up to the name, and that's what it gave him too. That confidence in himself. He even says it in the book, or how he explains it
I finally did
is, I
something
finally
to
did
deserve
something
this.
to deserve the fame I have, and you can tell there's some guilt almost there for the fame he has, and feeling like I don't deserve this. What did I do? I just
But why, Hagrid?
survived. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that's
But you don't think Harry has any resentment to Dumbledore? I mean, think about if you're
later
put in
on,
that
maybe.
position.
I don't know.
Think if you're put in that
Oh,
position
yeah.
and you couldn't, you know,
Does
whether
he know?
you're not going to look at it as I would have grown up to be a monster. You're going to look at it as you're
You
the
put
monster
me
for
with
putting
this.
me with
Okay,
these
so
monsters.
does he know why he's in that position
Yeah,
though?
but
No
you're
one
a
ever
kid.
says that to
You
him.
don't. You're like, hey, I'm living in absolute
Yeah.
bullshit misery.
And you're
when
telling me I
could
could have
have
been
had
in the
money. I could have had
Right.
people that love me.
So yeah,
You know, and
but
I've
he
been
doesn't.
here with this bullshit.
So
Once you find out like
Mhm.
that your life isn't just this.
He struggles
You're like,
with this
why
later.
did you
in
put me
five,
here?
when
In
he's
five,
when
yep,
he's a
we will
crabby
see him
Right.
little-
struggle with this when he
But-
starts becoming more aware of
Right.
why he was put where he
Right.
was.
Or you think of the fact as they didn't tell him about Snape or Sirius Black.
No,
you know,
serious
godparent.
that
You know, why did Dumbledore? Now,
He gets
granted,
mad in that
obviously,
one too,
you know,
yep,
we
you're right.
know, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm on that theory of Dumbledore is the real villain in this series.
Okay,
to some
and I
extent.
can see where that comes from, and I felt that way before, and I'm trying to look at it with a different light of like Dumbledore's always been this Christ-like character in the series. Like he sees all, knows all, he is omnipotent, all these things. Like he's like he even says it. There's like you mentioned it before, he's invisible. There's more than one way
100%.
to become invisible. So he's like giving this eerie feeling that he is always watching and knows all,
He's
know?
Santa
Yeah,
Claus.
he literally
And
says to him. I
it's-
wrote that one down. Is
Yeah.
he says, "I don't need a cloak to become invisible."
Yeah, no, and that is I don't remember that in the movies. It
No.
wasn't in there. So
No.
like there was this definite feeling that like Dumbledore, and he was strange too. We're on Dumbledore just for a little bit here. Like it's the in the book that his first words, he gets up and he says like I forget what the 4 words were. I got them written down. We can go over it later. But he just like he whips out some words that aren't even just 4 random words, and then goes sit down and eat. It wasn't some grand speech. It was just some 4 words that he's like, let me say a few words, and then says literally a few words that are fun words. And
Yeah.
it just shows like the silliness of it, and in her writing even too, which will segue us to what Britt wants to talk about.
So biggest takeaway for me was the writing style. I don't know if it's just because of the shit I'm reading now or
That's
you know, you
There was no spice.
yeah, that never
there
came.
gets some teenage spice later, but I don't think we're gonna. They don't
Please,
get like.
if you would know what listen.
When,
I'm not- I
Ginny,
already-
when Ginny and Harry, I remember it because
Yeah.
she says, or Harry says, the dragon awoke in my belly. Or it was
I will
something.
vomit. I will
Yeah.
actually vomit.
I don't think that's gonna start with like a trigger warning.
No, but yeah, so the writing style was my biggest. All the dashes and like the way she does pauses and her point of view, where we talked about this too, where it's like you never almost know what point of view she's talking in, so names have to be dropped all the time
Yeah.
because you really don't know where she's going. I wonder if I will feel that progresses as we read
We
on,
go on.
you know, because obviously authors grow.
Yep,
It was her first book.
Yes, she was. Okay.
So-
Yep.
Yeah.
And as an author, think we all can agree that she is quite the person. But she just in media and stuff, she's polarizing to a lot of people. But when she started this is a victim of abuse who was using this as a way
To escape.
to escape.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it shows because it's such a beautiful thing. And if anybody takes everyone's got their feelings of this woman, but one thing that I really took away, and no matter what, you got to look at the good in people, and that's one thing with her that I think that she used this as a way to help heal herself. And unfortunately, I wish she would
Yeah.
use a little bit more of that. I think she made too much money, and that unfortunately corrupts people. So
Yep. My other biggest thing that
hopefully
shocked
she listens
me,
and gets mad.
yeah, right. The fact that the birthday cake was spelled correctly that Hager gave
That's
Harry.
trash. That is such
Um,
trash.
I mean, literally, you can buy pins and shirts with the
Yeah.
happy spelled incorrectly. And when it was spelled
It's a
correctly
big
in the
thing in the
book, I
movie.
read it like 5 times, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, am I dumb?
Wait,
I had the same
Is
thing,
my
too.
Kindle auto correcting? Like, I need
Yeah.
to know."
Yeah.
And that was a huge one that I was like, "Come on."
Yep.
Wonder why they switched that.
I think they just wanted to make, because he's played up as kind of a dumber character, but I think
like,
the
childlike.
moments that he is dumb is he is drunk. So I think they wanted to get away from
He's
showing
drunk.
him inebriated, and
Oh.
that was
I was
perfect
like,
timing
that was
too.
so loud. I'm like, she's got it in the microphone on purpose.
That was too perfect. So, speaking of which, is that he does like to drink. We get to hear about some of them drinking too at the Christmas party and stuff. But that's something you see more adult topics that are in the book that didn't quite make it to those early movies because the director, Christopher Columbus, or I think it's just Chris
Sail the
Columbus.
ocean
What?
blue.
Sailed the ocean blue. He
Did he,
he
though?
wanted it was gearing it towards children. Like that was
Yeah.
what his goal was, and he was one that made some great children's movies before this, after this. But that's why he was chosen, I think, for the
Yeah.
Harry Potter series.
It was like alluded to, when they first get to the leaky cauldron.
Yes,
And when
yep.
they're like, oh,
just
like
a little bit like he couldn't drink. Yeah,
well, yeah, like, oh, like the regular Hagrid, or it's like, so he's obviously there and like whatever, but that's kind of just in passing.
yeah.
So like it's alluded to that he is a regular at this
Oh,
place.
absolutely.
Well, and I think that like you see a couple times in it, like even when the dragon egg comes up, he feels sorrowful about how that all worked out when it's revealed what actually was behind the dragon egg.
Yeah.
But you just
Never gonna
see
drink.
like he even admits, "Oh, I drank a little too much," as he's like talking
He kept
to
buying him. He drink.
Yep,
what
he
you
kept
said.
buying me drinks,
Well,
and
they were asking him
Yep.
questions. He's like, well,
he's
now
like-
let me see her. Yeah.
yep, yeah.
can't
So
quite
and he couldn't
remember.
remember because he obviously had drank, too much.
That's never happened to me.
No, that's I'm sure none of us have ever experienced
Last Tuesday.
that. So,
The fuck.
so yeah, so yeah. I think it's cool. Like just Hagrid in general. I think it's crazy how
Did
much
anyone-
of a different character.
Catch that he was knitting on the train.
I wrote that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
What?
I'm
He
sorry.
was
Yeah.
knitting.
He was knitting. I wrote that
Yeah.
in fun facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
should
like,
we before
Start-
we,
Why do
like,
I
go
not
all
remember
over,
this?
Should
Yeah.
we go like
go
chapter?
chapter to. I was just gonna suggest
Yeah.
that. I love you.
Because I'm just like I have so many things, but they're
Yeah.
like wait.
Let's do this in an orderly fashion so we can get it all out.
Mine
So-
might not be that because I turned mine into like topics. but
Topics.
I'll
Yeah.
do
Well, and
my
you can
best.
go like so your topics that you have, like just go off of that. based off of what we do
You didn't
chapter
do the
to
assignment
chapter.
correctly.
No,
I
it's fine.
clearly,
No,
like,
there was no.
She probably
There's
did it
no
the
way to
most
do it
correct,
right or
and the
wrong.
rest of us are
Yeah,
just shit.
Well, she
This
had
was
so
so
many notes
stressful.
that she had to bring it down to
I
a
had to
tangible
type 'em
thing.
out. Yeah.
I
Yes.
wouldn't purposely probably have them in order, but I just did like doing the highlighting on the
Yeah, on
Kindle,
the
and now
Kindle,
I'm
no.
looking at it. It goes chapter 1, page 11.
Yeah.
Chapter
That's
1,
nice.
page
Really nice.
14.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
like,
you have
super
like
nice.
the
I'm like-
yeah, so you can go right back and look at the actual writings then with yours.
Yeah.
See, and I
Okay,
couldn't do
that's
that because
another
I
thing
did
we
the
should-
audiobook.
Yep, we should bring that up right now. So you did the audiobook. I'm doing the illustrated book.
not
You're
graphic novel.
not graphic novel. We had a little bit of a tiff before about that one. And I mansplain things. I do that all the time. I probably you have heard me probably do it on this podcast now.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
like
Admitting is the
I-
first step.
that's why
I read it on Kindle.
And read it on regular.
just
hardback
regular the
book.
regular book.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
all
we're
did
all
something
doing a
different?
different way.
Yeah.
So and what
That's
what
fun.
is and yeah, just such a okay.
So,
That was unplanned, basically.
That was
We were
unplanned,
excited because
but-
it was unplanned.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
yeah.
so the Audible was fine, but the one thing with it is they do not pronounce the T on Voldemort.
Oh,
They
that
say
would- yeah,
Voldemort.
that'd be
And at
annoying.
first, I was like, maybe he just said it fast
Yep.
based on the set. And then obviously they say it more times, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
they're really not pronouncing the T.
skipping
So,
it. Yeah.
do you think that's
On
like a
the end.
regional thing? Like whoever.
So I'm trying to figure out
The
was the
speaker
guy do they in Britain is that how
Malort
they
or
pronounce
Malort?
it? Or like
Like,
because
whoa,
he's yeah he's
Wah-uh.
he's
Right.
from across the pond. The guy who read it, let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Is
Because
that
I think of
Doyle?
like
No, that's
something
let me
like
see who it
local
was.
for us, like
Yeah.
Fillmore.
Yep.
Is there's T's, there's
Was it Malor or Malort?
stop,
I can't.
I,
but it's clearly in the movies.
Jim Dale.
pronounced-
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Jim Dale's the American one or
the-
the English
I don't
one?
know. It just says narrated by Jim Dale, and
But
he
Jim
did not.
Dale. That sounds like an
pronounce the
American name.
T. He,
When it
Jim
comes
Dale
out of
is
your
a
mail, like, well, because it's Jim Dale, two racing car drivers' names.
What
So
do you
it-
mean by that?
That's what I mean. That like Jim
don't
Dale.
race in
I
Britain
want to
or
come
what?
out
English,
Southern twang.
English actor and composer. So
Yeah, he
from the
definitely
United
is from.
Kingdom.
He's definitely from across the pond, and he did not pronounce the T on Voldemort, and it
Interesting.
kind of irked me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they unanimously do that over there.
I was
That's
just
what I'm
gonna
asking.
was it a
Yeah, but it's
unanimous
Okay,
all-
so
decision?
British listeners, what we need you to do is write in.
Right in what
to-
snail mail?
I don't
Find
know.
Dear
our
Abby.
Facebooks.
Find the Facebook. The only thing we got is Vault 420. That's the overall company, and we are sitting currently in the coop, the recording studio in Rachel and my vault. We have of our own. So, do you guys remember?
Here we are in the vault.
Going
Here we
back, I
are.
really very much did enjoy the Audible book though.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might try it for one of the later books.
Again, I do both. I had both. So
Audible. I've never done an Audible book. I'll be honest. I'm hesitant.
when you have 3 small children, you
Yes.
need
Yep.
to do that.
My attention span, I need to engage multiple senses. And with a book, I am engaging touch and my eyes.
So why
An
don't you?
illustrated
So
book.
I
and
do.
an illustrated book.
I do
really-
both.
Yeah.
I listen to Audible while I read.
What?
Yes, with all my books.
Yeah. So you're
So I'll
engaging
hold my
multiple
Kindle-
senses. You're ADHD as fuck too, I can tell.
Listen, mind your
That's-
business.
I read it on Kindle and just pretend I don't have a family,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I
she
mean,
even
Well,
though they're
and
just like all
Rachel-
around me, and
yes.
I'm just like,
Called dis-
Rachel needs to like
Association.
take any and all away, but like I'll tell you what. She has to deal with me coming in at any given time and
hey, look
trying
at this.
to-
Why do you watch
yeah,
this video?
Why don't
Hey,
you watch this
hey,
video? Hey, why don't
hey.
we plan our whole week right now while you're reading this book? Like, why don't we?
At the
why
best
don't-
part too. Like, bitch, I got
Yeah, and you can
fucking
see- I can
10
tell where
pages
she's
of
at.
sexy time.
She's like,
Leave
I
me
just-
alone.
They just went from enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Get
the
out
switch.
of here.
Holy fuck, that'd be the worst timing.
Yeah, when does that happen in Potter here?
I
Yeah.
literally
That's what
cannot
I was
shut
gonna.
up.
That's another thing I wanted to ask too. Is like, so is this too like you guys are not getting enough spice? with this?
I
So you
texted
gotta-
I texted Rachel
Yeah.
in the middle of reading the book, and I said, "Me waiting for someone to fucking Harry Potter because what?"
You can write. There's fan fiction out there actually that you can look into.
you
if
know,
for a
guys
couple
really-
years,
think
though,
about
if you
it,
really-
They have
I'm
to
like,
be like graduated for
Yeah.
this.
Yes,
like-
and well, that's the thing is the fan fiction is when they're older. This is not fan fiction.
Oh,
of
well,
high
that's-
schoolers.
that's
Like,
helpful,
you're
actually.
basically-
That is helpful.
I
Yeah.
thought that I was because I have whatever is it called, Manacle. I ask every time.
Which I
Monocle.
think we should podcast
Yeah,
that.
so I have it on my Kindle waiting, but then I was nervous. I'm like, is this gonna warp the way that I see these characters? But now that I know it's like after.
Well, on that note, I have not read or watched or anything with Cursed Child. And now
No,
that
me neither.
we have been doing this, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm going to wait. Because if we do.
I think we should
continue
dive
on-
into that after the series. I think we should keep
But-
rolling, and then we can. I don't know how I feel about fan fiction.
We should do. We should
Smut.
have Ross read Smut.
So and then have me react to it.
And it'd be
Listen,
Ross.
Feathers.
Bruce
Listen, Feathers so vicious. I gotta
Oh,
see.
Alright,
the best.
Just the whole
We'll
thing
be
is me
sitting down
uncomfortable
here.
as all hell. Like
Ross will just
so,
be bewildered.
yeah, that's my sister and everything.
We'll have you read it
That's
aloud. We'll
awesome.
have you read it
Yep,
aloud.
Let's do it.
Have we
Popcorn
said,
reading.
Have we set our relationship? We haven't set our relationship.
No, yeah, we have. So there's definitely. So
Jesus.
we've already mentioned, like Rachel and I are fiancés. Leah and I are brother and sister, and Britt's just some fuck.
That's
Oh,
right.
No, Britt's a very good friend of Rachel's that
Very-
Not your guys'
Very-
friend.
no,
just
but,
Rachel.
just
that
me.
that has now become.
Fuck you.
Wait, let me finish what I was saying.
She originated with Rachel.
That she originated with Rachel and now has become a very dear friend to all of us here at the table down
praise-
in the coop.
Great.
Oh, there we go.
I don't share.
That's why I don't. She's my friend. You've gotten that way
What
with
are you,
some of your
Faye?
friends. You have
I keep
With who?
with
I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to
Names,
think. who-
Times.
I'm trying to
Just
think who it
kidding.
was that I was talking to that you got upset
We don't
about.
talk
It
about
was
that.
Yeah. No.
Ooh.
We talk about it.
That's-
We definitely
Guess.
every time
Don't
before the
guess.
podcast
Oh, I
we
don't
talk
wanna
about
guess.
it.
No.
That's what.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So, chapter 1.
Let's do it.
Oh no.
All right. So
There
what
can be
I
only
have
one.
hearing about the Dursleys first, like hearing about their storyline first before even diving into the
7.5 pages
yeah.
of that.
yeah, like that's all
7
gone.
and a-
I wrote it down. I flagged that shit too.
Yeah, and it's like so. I mean, that's definitely it's a big thing. Like you
It
don't get that
Dude
feel
works
of
in
the
drills?
Dursleys.
Didn't
Yeah,
even know.
No,
yeah.
0%.
Didn't even know.
Yep, 0%.
What a boring. Well, not even like he personally. He's got some corporate job, is what I'm gathering. Like he's just like that's kind of the whole thing. Is he's part of the corporate ladder, and what that's what his company does is they work on drills. Is that so? That's Mr. Dursley's job.
But like the
Mrs.
amount of times they said drills
Yes,
in the
yeah,
chapters,
okay.
I was
Yeah.
like, bro,
So you guys
drills.
Yeah. We get it.
Like,
all he
can
talks about,
can we hear
yeah.
about Mr. Dursley drill and Mrs. Dursley, please? No. So
With her blonde hair.
with her
Yeah,
with her
yeah,
blonde
right.
hair. Yeah. Did that one get you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dudley's blonde too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dudley's blonde. Yeah, there's definitely some things in there that's you get to hear a little more about the Dursleys. And yeah, I
Their
don't know.
way of life. The biggest
Yeah.
thing with that was like that they recognized wizards or like magical things happening.
Happening. Like the peculiar things
Yeah,
basically.
that kind
The
of threw
cat
me
reading
for
the
a
map, who's obviously Professor
McGonagall.
Yeah,
McGonagall.
and then reading the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like seeing like the Herbie one that when he overheard like the mumbling and stuff, and someone's like not even dressed in Muggle clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something like that they
They heard the
exist
word,
among
yeah.
And somebody
Muggles, but
mentions
they
Potter
like
too, don't they?
disguise as far as like
Yeah.
they don't wear cloaks, they
Yeah.
don't wear whatever, they wear Muggle clothes.
Yeah.
Herbie, because it's always kind of out there. Like, well, do they know? Does Muggles don't know about wizards, but wizards know about Muggles, or what's the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
they mentioned
connection
that's why
there?
dragons were banned too, because the Muggles
Yeah.
caught on.
Muggles caught
you
on.
can't
and
hide
so-
a dragon in a
yeah.
freaking backyard, so
Right.
the Muggles caught on.
Try me.
Yep.
That's not something, right?
That's what, that's what Hagrid said.
He did.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm
I
just
know.
gonna raise this thing.
Hagrid got the
Yeah.
shit end of the stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's we'll get into that later.
Another my next highlight I have is that McGonagall didn't know that Dumbledore was gonna bring Harry to them.
Oh,
You know, in the scene in the movie, she questioned like, "Are you sure you want to do this? They're the worst kind
Yeah.
of Muggles." Blah blah blah. But you have a whole like multiple page situation where she's been watching and all this, but like she's surprised like that this is the plan.
yeah,
So, you know, like in trying to like Dumbledore's explaining like this is why like they're not on the same page at first.
But do you
And-
think it sets the preface that Dumbledore keeps a lot of his plans in the dark?
yes, I
Yeah.
think that he doesn't like. Yeah, he's
I
like
mean,
once
he-
again,
he's-
he is the mystical, almost Christ-like thing in this series, where he's the one that sees all, knows all, has the plan.
Right,
So-
but you know, you're in the dark on aspects of the plan.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're supposed to be kind of like the second as
Correct.
McGonagall,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
don't know
And you just trust
this.
them. You
Yeah.
just trust
Well,
them.
and
and
that's
she
the
didn't
thing.
know
Yep.
that you read her find out that James and Lily died. She didn't
She had no idea.
she
Yep.
didn't know that, and that's what I like when
No.
in the movie they're just like, okay, she doesn't like it, but this is what has to be done.
So like,
Yeah.
are we
Like, they
talking
know
when
what's happened.
When he dropped Harry off at the Dursleys, are we talking like his parents got yeeted the day before?
They go more
Hagrid
into it
talks
later on.
about like
Hagrid-
that he's had him, but I don't know.
I thought Hagrid came from the. That was something I flagged, was that Hagrid was the one to literally step into the ruins of the home
Yes,
and
to
Yes.
get Harry. Yes.
So I was
Yep.
under the assumption.
Pulled him
Does it
from
say
the
that
rubble.
in the book?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yes. Yep.
Hagrid says, "Well, I pulled him."
Yeah, I pulled him from the
yeah.
rubble. Yep.
So I
Oh,
assumed
shit.
that
Yeah.
that he was pulling him, like he pulled
Like it
him
happened.
and went
From the literal
Yeah.
rubble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it's specified.
Yep.
On a bike that he borrowed
On
from
a bike
Sirius
that he
Well, 'cause
That was my
It
next
probably
note.
got
Like
flagged.
he brought up, oh, young Sirius Black lent it to me.
Yep.
Huh?
So,
Yeah.
foreshadow.
Because you don't hear jack shit
And you
about
know,
Sirius
yeah,
until
Sirius
book
Black's
3.
about to get fucking thrown in a cell and key locked away.
Yeah.
Right.
But then that's the only mention.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't
until
mention him
book
again.
3. Well, maybe because I wouldn't see why they'd have to mention
No.
2, but yeah, then all of a sudden, that was a big one.
Yeah. I was just like, wait, what? But you were gonna say something?
I don't remember. Whatever it was. I just before we go too far into that, I had to put her outer instead of Deluminator.
Oh, put outer. Yeah.
Put
I wondered
outer.
if that was an English version versus
Deluminator is just something they said
American
later.
version.
It was just
Yeah.
her right that once again going into the writing style thing. The put her outer sounds so childish compared to Deluminator. Like that's the
100%.
proper, but it comes from a place where someone might be looking at this not knowing what this is too, the way the book's written. So it's almost as if the narrator is growing in their understanding of wizards as the story goes along. Her being the narrator, becoming a better writer.
Yeah,
I don't
let's
know.
hope so,
Also,
because that
it's
point
That's
of
why
view is whack.
she
written
does
for
get better.
children.
She gets better.
Right, and it's written for children.
Yes.
So
Yep.
put her outer.
A put her outer is more understandable for a child,
Right.
Oh, it puts the lights out.
Right.
That was my big, I don't know, takeaway.
But you know
Well, not
what?
big,
You
but-
think I think of things like all this stuff I did miss in 5th grade on how deep the story went. I mean, I remember reading it in 5th grade and just thinking magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there was no depth to it of like you talked about
There's a lot more
Harry-
adult.
Right, Harry
things.
becoming somebody, coming out
Yeah.
of his shell. I don't feel like I grabbed that in 5th grade.
0%.
No, and
0%.
that's like anything.
And I don't know that
not-
you're meant to.
Yeah, no.
No.
As a child.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's why people people get made fun of. This is a children's series. It is not. This is someone, like I said, who went through abuse and used this as their way
Created this world.
to create this world. And you can see it as very adult things. And that's where I noticed the physical stuff come out a lot more too in the books. And I will get into that later where it pops up. But that's one thing I did notice that would be one of my other big takeaways, I guess, from the whole, is there's a lot more violence
Mhm.
in the series than what made to the movies. And for obvious reasons, because we don't, they didn't want to promote a violent thing. But even like some of the characters that later on, the next book we're going to be reading, there's a fight that happens in there that I remember from the book where Mr. Dursley actually gets, or not Mr. Dursley, Mr. Weasley gets in a fight. And it's a very, like, a moral compass character, but you find out that he got into a physical fight and lost his cool. And that obviously didn't make the movie because, well, this is one of the only moral compass characters
Yeah.
we have as far as males go, because most of them are kind of questionable. You really look at all of them. And you can see that too, that there are most of the male characters are quite complicated. Well, all of the characters are quite complicated, but the male characters, there's a little bit of a bite there, I think, to some of them. Some of the adult male characters, they all have a lot more complications that are explained than the female ones do. Like you're delving into, that's one thing I noticed just kind of from an adult eye, and in my own walk in life now with having male guilt, I guess, and but seeing some of the issues with the men that she pointed out, and I mean the women in there too. There was a little bit, but I guess I went with this as an eye of looking at the author herself and what she went through as she wrote it. So
Or how
yeah, characters and why I'm sure she went through a time where she hated men, and that's why it might have shown a little bit with the male characters predominantly being the ones that are evil in the series, But you still have Petunia, but Petunia is not evil. She's just had to deal with some shit, and like the dealing of and I think there's depth there with other characters too, but like Mr. Dursley, there's no, he's just evil. There isn't any explanation as to why he's evil, where you see a little bit more with the female characters explaining some of that. And I don't know if that's just me being, you know what I mean, but like I just kind of looked at it that way.
Definitely
Like,
different from an adult eye.
yeah, no, and that's like coming at it with an adult eye, and like I say, in my own walk and what I'm going through. And I think when you read a book, you're gonna have a little bit
Your
of that
worldview
influence
is
inflicted
anything,
on what
yeah.
you're reading. So yeah. Chapter 2, we want to delve into that, or is there anything else anybody has on chapter 1?
Yeah, Professor Mc.
Oh yes, yep.
That is it.
I have
That
been
is it.
biting my
She's
fucking
a
tongue.
Scottish character. They don't
she?
really play her as a Scot. This is things that look so. There's a lot that was retconned or even explained after the fact of the series. But traditionally, she is portrayed as a Scottish character of Scottish descent. The emerald robes, the ornate in the films, and this is from a behind the scenes I saw for the costumes on the film. But her character was made to look like that, like a Scottish,
God, she played that role
and she did.
perfectly.
Well,
Yeah.
she had the accent, everything. Like
Golly.
she and
did.
like so. There's definitely, and we don't know that, but that's like a behind the scenes thing, and you'll realize it when you look at it now that there was like a Scottish like feel to her, and that's what they've continued to portray that in media released after. Like I played a game, a mobile game that really dives into the lore, and that one of her things, like it delves into all these characters, and I love when they delve into hers because they still keep that Scottish feel to it all. So
I don't even know. See, I didn't go by chapters, right? Think down.
no, I did. So we'll just go.
It doesn't have to be
Yep.
exact.
Yeah,
Like,
once they
No.
trigger stuff, then I remember. Oh yeah, I had a thought about that
Yep,
or
okay.
Yeah,
whatever. and
one
helps
that's
it.
writing it down alone probably helps you,
Yeah.
remember the stuff. So chapter 2. All right, my thing I noticed was Mrs. Fig gets introduced. We don't, I don't think she's ever introduced in the movie,
She is in the fifth.
in the 5th movie,
In
but
the
not
Yeah.
fifth
yes,
movie,
but not in.
I
The,
just realized that too.
Yep,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
she's not present.
Mhm.
No.
no.
Find out.
It's talked about because that's where he's supposed to go for Dudley's
don't you
birthday.
see her in the window when they get back from the zoo?
Yes,
Yes, you do. You
okay,
see her
is there?
peeking. You don't know who she is.
You don't know who she is, but
but
you
you
know.
see her
Yeah, she's not
peeking.
introduced or anything.
She's not introduced, but you see her peeking out the window, and that's when Mr.
Yeah.
Dursley's like, "It's fine. Like, don't worry about it." And they haul Dudley in
Okay, yep, you're right.
from the zoo.
And then he must. I bet you it was. When they use the character later, they utilize her because it's the same actress. You're
100%.
right.
100%.
Okay, yeah. So she was introduced in the movie, but we didn't hear about her the same way it was in the book.
No.
Yeah, you like that? Well, what the
What's-
Muggle backstory?
The mug, yes,
then later
her
we
Muggle.
find out
Yeah,
she's
we find
not
out in
the
the 5th book what
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
So
But in the movies, don't they act like that he planted her there?
Yes,
in
Dumbledore.
later,
Yeah.
yep.
In the
She
books, they
brings
do.
up
Yep.
Dumbledore. Like, do you think that he'd leave you, here without being watched, essentially?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's number 5. So you know.
Yes.
was-
You're like, I seem to remember.
That's what. Yeah. Yep.
I think it's neat. I always remember the chocolate cake. It doesn't. There's some things I can read this book 1,000,001 times and be like, I pick up on something different every time. For some reason, I always remember the chocolate cake
See, and I didn't remember anything about her.
Yeah. because it was.
That's later on.
Yeah. No, I mean, whenever when they go to the zoo and Miss Fig,
Yep.
Oh,
they're
she would
talking
make
about-
him the chocolate cake.
she
Oh,
would
so that
feed him
okay.
the chocolate cake.
Oh,
and, yeah, and
okay.
he's
So
like,
I just caught that he hated the experience. I didn't see that
He
that-
did because
Yeah, he did, but I mean, the cake still was her. Like, she can't control who she is. You know what I mean?
Right.
She's this older woman who is
Right.
just trying to love and be there for Harry, probably as another person that he isn't
probably
even
didn't know
aware
what to
of.
talk to him about. If you
No,
think about that.
no.
Again,
She's been
something you went to-
spying on him. This
Again,
is someone
something
she's
you went to
probably
pick
not.
up as a child.
Yeah.
right, like,
But as an adult, now I hear and I'm like, she probably did not know what to talk to him about because she couldn't talk to him about anything in the wizardly world. She couldn't talk to him about anything of his past, his parents, nothing. So let me talk to you about my fucking cat for 9.5 hours
right.
because I don't know what the fuck
Yeah,
else
that's all
to
I
talk
got.
to you
Talk
about.
anything else, I might divulge the fact
Because
that I've been
your
watching
life
you.
sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your life sucked ass. We're not going to talk about that.
Right.
Like, how's school?
Yeah.
Shit. How's
Right.
your home life? Shit.
Right.
Like,
Because then I'm gonna.
that's
if
an
she
interesting
does
piece.
acknowledge that she is aware, then that's just another adult not jack shit about a situation.
100%.
Well, and
So-
that's the thing is like, but I think they've all been instructed to do just that,
Yeah, but
and that's what you find
failing
out
that
later.
child.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's yep.
I know we
So
would
as
have a
it-
story.
yeah.
I know. Fuck.
Yeah,
it is
but like, and
frustrating.
there's so like we're looking at this as just a child. This isn't just a child. This is the Harry Potter, the savior, basically, the
boy
one
who
that's like the
lived,
boy who
man.
lived. Then they're looking at him like, but we find out even later that his job isn't done yet. And
No.
there's only so many people that know this, and these are the people that are helping him along the way. So like you really see that, and it comes prominent more and more as it goes along. But knowing that and looking back at these, you really can see that then, like, oh my God, like here it is.
Yep.
We, and yeah,
Do
The
they go to
world-
the zoo in chapter 2?
yes.
Yes.
Chapter 2 is zoo. So we meet Dudley's friends. That
Yeah,
was one of the
which-
differences. They came
Yep.
along. Piers, Polkus,
Only
or
one
just
came
one
along,
friend.
right?
Yep.
Piers.
Sorry. That was the other ones come in later. But Piers, Polkus goes to the zoo as well, which is that's Dudley's best friend, who is a skinnier kid. I think they describe him as, and likes to hold the people that he beats up on. Is what I think Harry describes it as in school. So they have a bully relationship basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that.
He's the
Dudley
one-
doesn't get trapped in the tank.
No.
No.
I love that part in the movie. It's just like
Piers is the one that points out that the snake is fake.
The
so
snake. Yep.
Norman
Yeah.
does that.
And you don't get the thanks that we always tell,
Well, it
like
was said
we
differently,
always
yeah.
like
He
make
still
fun
says
of.
thanks.
He does.
He does say
but it's
thanks,
not
but-
like that conversation doesn't go down like it's one that's changed.
Brazil, here I come. Thanks,
Yeah.
amigo.
Yeah.
And he
Amigo.
says, so it makes it sillier.
Yep.
Than just saying thanks. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, like remember this is a children's
and
book.
obviously that
So
foreshadowed him being able to talk.
yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is the magic we've seen. What we don't hear in the movie are the times that he performed magic before this. And they give a little list of it. One of them was when his aunt shaved his head because
And
she
his
was
hair
so
grew
and his
back,
hair
that's
grew
right.
back.
That's brought up
And it was like the next
in
day
the shack. Yeah.
it is okay. See, there's certain things I wrote down, and I feel bad because like I could have written things I think aren't in the movie, but they might be.
No, the
so,
hair
It's
growing
not
back
brought
is
up
not
in the
No,
but
nope.
it's brought up later in the book when he brings up like when Hagrid's like you've not had anything like made
Yes.
anything happen when you've been upset or whatever.
the
and
hair growing back would be the one
Yeah.
thing because there's two other
And
instances.
then what are the other two again?
His
that
clothes
one.
shrank when she was trying to put on some of Dudley's hand-me-downs. Excuse me, I had to burp. She had to, because he always was wearing Dudley's hand-me-downs, and this is a particularly ugly one he did not want to wear. And as she was trying to force it on him, he actually made the clothes shrink, so
Yeah,
it
that's
would
right.
not fit him at all. And she's like, well, I don't know what happened, and she just kind of blew it off and he didn't get in trouble for that one. The hair he got in trouble for. He didn't get in trouble for the clothes shrinking. And then the last one is when he was chased at school by Dudley and
that's
his
right.
buddies, and he just was trying to jump behind the garbage to hide, and he ended up jumping and levitating himself up on top of the building. So he was on top of the
Yep.
building.
And that kind of can segue us into chapter 3 because I have my first note in chapter 3 is Harry hunting.
Yeah.
And so that's something you don't see until I think 5 again, like Dudley and his friends. Like you see Pierce and like you hear that he has friends, but you don't see like
You don't
Dudley
have-
has friends, but you don't see anything of like his friends like ganging up on him. And
Yeah.
like one of their favorite things is Harry hunting.
Harry, yep.
And like that they really fuck with him. Like
First scene
this
in
early
5 in
on.
the movie. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why you don't really see that until 5, like the opening scene of 5.
Well, and that Dudley has been such a bully in his life. We know that he bullies him, but like even at school, we don't see any of the school life in the
Right.
movie.
Oh,
That's definitely not brought up.
there was something that
Well, the-
I
Yeah, go ahead.
right, there was something that I wrote down about the year that Harry was going into the 11th year. He was excited regardless of because he didn't know he was a wizard at this time, right? But he was still excited for the next year because it meant that he wasn't going to be
Going
going
to
to
a
the same
different school.
school as
Yep.
Dudley.
Yep.
Yep.
So I wrote that down. I was like, oh, so he's like thrilled for the next year anyways, just because of that, because he's gonna
Yeah.
get away from Dudley.
Yep.
And then it was just so much better. I remember when I was writing the note, I originally was thinking like, oh, he's going away to boarding school. I was like, so he was gonna be free anyway. And then when I
Yeah.
kept reading and I had to change the note, I was like, oh no, it's just another school. He's gonna still live with the Dursleys, so that's gonna suck. But
Yeah. Yep.
it was at least a little bit of like
A break.
a
A break
from
from
Dudley
him.
and
Yep.
all
That
his
he would be
friends.
going to a different school. Yep. So there was that, and then he found out that he got to go to an even cooler freaking school.
Yep.
So yeah. So 3, Harry got moved from the cupboard to the Dudley's second room, one of 4 bedrooms in the house, which they also had a guest bedroom as well. So that really drove home the holy fuck.
There were
The
2 open
cupboard,
bedrooms, and he was
yeah,
in the cupboard.
and he was in the cupboard, and so that really drove home the monsters that the Dursleys were to him. And I every all around, like it just really drove home what a shitty life that Harry came from.
It also draws home the effect abuse can have because Harry mentioned
Yeah,
that he missed his cupboard. So when you're put in a position
yeah,
of abuse and it's your norm and you're
Yep.
put into something normal, I mean, he literally mentions in the book, I missed my cupboard because everything felt so large to him and so,
Right.
and that's heartbreaking actually.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm playing footsie with you. If you dig deep into that.
Yeah.
It's sad.
No, there's a lot, like I say, that this adult eyes, and you start looking at this, you're like, oh my god, like, oh, the poor kid, man.
Me as a
like,
kid, like, why the fuck do you miss
Yeah.
your cupboard, homeboy? Get in
Yeah.
the bedroom.
Yeah,
Like,
no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you get it, like, no, it's the cupboard. The cupboard was his world. That's what he knew up till that point, and that's even though it was abuse, that's what he knew, and that was what he was comfortable in then, because that's what he had to find comfort in. Well, that was kind of his escape though too, the cupboard, but they still messed with him while he was in there, and it was not a good
Yep.
setting. The spiders, all that stuff.
And chapter 3 is also when the letters start coming.
Yep, and that actually leads into why my point is, because the first letter that comes says the cupboard under the stairs, but then it starts changing to
Because-
wherever they are.
Yeah,
Which
but the
that
Dursleys, he
doesn't
gets
happen
moved
in
to
the movie.
begin with
No,
because they're
no.
like, somebody knows that we keep
Yep.
him in the cupboard.
Yeah, so they
Like,
spying
that
on
was the fact that they realized they were being watched, and that that's what drove them to actually do the right frickin' thing, but
Yep.
and put this kid in one of the 2 spare
Yep.
rooms that you have,
I have
and then Dudley being the asshole. But what I like about this, the one thing I will say about all this, and it sucks that it takes the hatred of Harry and stuff to get it there, or the fear, actually, I think, the fear of what could happen from it all, to properly parent Dudley, not 100%, but with the fact that, hey, no, 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 we're not just doing what you want. And they started drawing lines and boundaries with
Order, yeah.
Dudley. And it was, yeah. Yep. Oh, okay.
Hello?
Oh, this is. Yeah, that was.
Speaking of the letters, you know what I kind of like perked my ears is how they kept mentioning it was green font. I often wondered
Yeah.
if that was foreshadowing, like him potentially being a Slytherin.
Because it was mentioned
Because
every
in the
time.
book, it was mentioned every time the
Green
letter
ink.
with the green ink.
The letter with the green ink.
And I'm like, why? Like, was that a like
Oh, they.
potentially
important detail.
Slytherin?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and yeah.
I just thought it was weird. Like, why would you focus on the color of the ink
Yeah.
on a letter?
On a letter.
Yeah.
And they're repeat it.
The
And
other-
That's a
repeat it.
detail. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing going off the letter, what he noticed was the coat of arms, which had a what on it? An eagle, not a raven. If you look over at the one behind Rachel, it's got a raven. A lot of times the movie has taken and made Ravenclaw into a
Oh.
raven, but in the book it's always been an eagle that is used for their animal, for the insignia, for everything.
Huh.
Yeah, but raven because Ravenclaw, but actually the raven claw is the black claw on an eagle. Like, it's, even though it's an eagle, that's the raven claw has something to do with an eagle. Like, so that's, yeah.
Not me pulling my phone out.
That's what.
what was going on?
That's. I just
While
watched a
you
YouTube video on that while I was on the shitter.
Of that. While you search for that, something weird that I noticed and is in one of my when the letters were starting to pour in, when Vernon boarded up
slot in the door or whatever, so
Yeah.
they're basically trapped inside.
Yep.
And Petunia is collecting the eggs through the window. And then before that point, she was also like when they put Harry on their doorstep as a baby, she found him because she was setting the milk out. So what year is this that she is getting milk delivered to her door and eggs,
It's the 90s.
and that happens
So I
still?
don't know if they still had that in their neighborhood. Maybe I don't know. That'd have to be something you'd have to look into. But
Sounds like the 40s or 50s.
it's
they were
yes,
at,
yep. So like this is supposed to be in the 90s. I forget which year specifically. We could probably do a little research on that. But yeah, it it's supposed to be in the 90s, and that's why you don't see cell phones and stuff neither, and stuff like that in the books or the movies. It'd be interesting to see what it would be written like as if now, or what wizarding kids would deal with cell phones if they would want them, or you know what I mean, like all these things that are changed since this book was written with technology even. I mean, back then though, like in the 90s, it was AOL Instant Messenger, and none of these kids are talking about that.
Right.
No one's talking about their age, sex, location, and
Thank
yeah, it's what-
If you can
Quiz.
survive AOL chat rooms, you can
that's
survive
what-
anywhere.
and what I loved is like when I was younger, being a boy. I don't know if you guys did this, but I would go on the lesbian chat rooms.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it was all a bunch of probably 6, 8-year-old boys on there going like, "I love boobs. You like boobs?" Like, "Oh, me too. Love boobs."
Didn't see any boobs in this first book.
No boobs. No.
We
All right.
missed it.
So let's yeah, so one thing that I really noticed too, when the Dursleys were trying to get away from the letters then. Like they were really running away from it. You didn't see that nearly as much in the book as in the movie. You just kind of saw that things did come up, and they even cut one of the scenes that the egg scene. They cut that out when she's breaking open the eggs after he,
and giving the
like
letters
they
to Finn.
delivered the eggs. When she's breaking them open, and it's all letters to Harry in every one of the 24 eggs.
Yeah, and it wasn't there like originally, but it's in like now streaming wise, like when it's
Streaming,
on
yep.
Peacock, all
Yep.
the cut scenes are in there.
And that's
Oh.
one of the ones that is now being included.
Because I remember watching all of a sudden
Yeah,
one time, and I'm like,
yeah,
what the fuck is this?
When is what?
And
when
then I'm
this-
like, I've only
yep.
watched this how many times? So
So
I've never seen this shit in my life.
Yep. So there's things like that that are in the movie, that happen that like obviously the book. I don't know. It's you can
In the
definitely
book,
see.
they go to a hotel too, don't they? Before they
Yes.
go to the
Yep. And they don't
that
do
doesn't
that.
happen in the movie
So
for sure.
so like what you see is they have to make cuts obviously, but you have scenes that were shot that never made the cut, and then you have things that never made it at all. Like Peeves was shot. They had an actor that played Peeves, and they actually shot some of the stuff on that. We can get a little into that later.
I didn't
But
know.
yeah.
I
So
don't want to get
we go. So where we're leaving it now is the Dursleys are trying to get like we're seeing Mr. Dursley go insane. He is
He's
really
pulling out his mustache.
he's pulling out literally pulling out his mustache, and that's one of the things in the books is things are very more physically extreme than what they are in the movie, and for obvious reasons. I mean, it would take quite a bit, makeup, whatever, to have him pulling his mustache out when
What
it's
I
not
don't
really a
understand
needed
about
thing.
that though is like you knew your bitch of a wife had a witch sister. You know you're not getting away from these fucking letters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
Well, and he wanted to just ignore it. That's kind of, but you could see him going like
Oh, yeah.
legitimately insane. Like
Could
he
he
was
not-
going
Did he not put together
more and
that,
more insane.
that owls were getting them? Because then he goes on to
Oh,
an
he
island.
knew. They knew where it was coming from.
They knew the owls were delivering.
They knew the owls were delivering. Well, that's right because he
his
does make the
logic.
no post on Sunday. Well, this is a man going insane.
Yeah, well, the logic, right? It
Yes.
seems like he wouldn't understand because the no post on Sunday and
Yep.
like going to an island, they're not gonna. Okay, a owl can't fly.
Well,
to
this
the
is one
island?
of their biggest fears. Think about it.
Yeah.
With Harry, and that's why they just stick him away. They've chosen to ignore it, and that's how they've treated everything with Harry. Just ignore it. Shut up. Don't ask questions.
But what I don't understand is if you get the letter from Hogwarts, can't you just be like, "Oh, good, a boarding school, sayonara, sucker."
Yeah,
like,
well,
you're
and he
gone.
didn't. Yeah.
Like you're not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
But
and
I
that's
think they were so against
him becoming a wizard.
the wizarding world,
Yeah.
you know, and
That's true.
that
Well,
'cause
now
they
he's
were
got-
weirdos.
If he could get trained on it, he could take them out.
Oh yeah, one of the comments
Like,
is
it's-
Dudley doesn't know I can't do fucking
Yep,
magic over
yeah,
the
at the
summer.
end,
That's
Yep,
the last
yep.
sentence. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
One of the things I was gonna say earlier too, and now seems relevant now is that they were spoken to like, or, oh, Petunia. There it is. Petunia was told that this needs to be Harry's house. It needs to be his home, and that is how he's going to be protected when he's here. That comes in later in the books.
Yeah, yep.
So like they are aware, like, and that was a
There's
scare
evil
tactic. There was
forces.
some sort of scare tactic
Mm-hmm.
to that
to keep him.
To keep him home.
But and Petunia knew that.
Yep.
I don't think that I can't remember
If
exactly,
Probably a
but
tax
Dursley,
break.
Mr. Dursley.
if
Yeah. What's his
Vernon
name?
knew
Vernon.
it.
Yep. Yeah. If he knew that.
But yeah, so I think that, like, okay, for him to go off to another school, that would be in the back of her mind. Well,
Yeah.
that's really not an option
Yeah.
because he does need to stay
He
at
does
home.
need to
he
stay
needs to live
here.
here for him to be safe. Yeah.
Well, and she also
And
there
he's
was
like
some
their
submitting to her
slave.
husband
Right.
too. Like you could see there was submitting to her husband with things multiple times in there where she's like just kind of, oh, yep, this is what dad, and there was some of that. You saw that there. It's something I noticed. I don't know. But yeah, so then we got Mr. Dursley taking him then as far away as he could. First they went to the hotel, got a letter there, said screw this, kept going, and eventually got to what we see in the movie where they get to that island. We don't see the act of getting out there. That's the little details you get in the book, but really not that important. You can see why it was cut. But here they are, and that starts us with the fourth chapter where Hagrid knocks down the door. It's a big moment in the movie, but there are a lot of differences and it's a big thing in the book too. There are a lot of differences from the book to the movie. This is where I really got excited though.
Me too. And I will say I had mentioned the birthday cake being one of my biggest like shock
Yeah.
factors, but another huge shock factor is in this scene too that I can't wait to share.
Oh, when he first comes in. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
no,
That's not.
yeah, just
yeah.
his whole time being there. One of my other shock moments from this scene, because that's a big moment
Yeah.
for everything.
I was shocked that you don't see he knows who Harry is right away.
That
He
he
doesn't
did. I wrote
mistake
that
him.
down.
He
I love
knows
that
exactly
in the
who he
movie
is.
though.
You're
I
right,
love
yep.
that.
Yeah, when
a
he
bit large and
A bit rounder than I thought, particularly in the middle.
Yeah, no, and he said so. He knocks on the door and he said, "Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could you? It's not been an easy journey." That's the first thing he says, and he also doesn't mistake Dudley for Harry, like in the movie. Those are the two things I noticed right there. Number one, showing he's not as dumb or whatever. That there's a care there for Harry. That possibly he might have been checking up in on him. We don't know for a fact, but the fact that he knew what Harry looked like, we also knew what his dad looked like too. You know what I mean? And
And
saw
he's a
his dad
spitting
go
image.
through it. And he's
Yeah.
a spitting image. So there was no doubt in his mind, yep, that's Harry. So
There's a
There
moment
was-
of care too, like how you said that he immediately is showing care for
yeah,
Harry,
immediately.
and he cooks them breakfast.
Yep,
and gives them
sausages and stuff,
right
yep.
away. Like I just thought that was
That was
Yeah.
a big shock for me, that they, he does all this explaining, and they don't in the movie. They just take all right, we're out, deuces.
Yeah.
But that they have this big revelation, and then he sleeps on the couch or makes
Yeah, he
breakfast
stays,
in the morning,
Yeah.
and they stay there. They don't just dip right away.
Yeah, and it's a lot more time spent there. He spends the night and sleeps afterwards,
stands up like.
Did you notice what shocked me was the verbiage of him telling him he's a wizard?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
exact, wasn't it?
so-
Wasn't it
no,
so when
No?
you're a wizard, Harry, compared to Harry, you're a wizard.
it doesn't
Oh.
slap the same.
It doesn't slap the same.
No.
And how many
that's a
times in
big
life,
thing that's
I don't know,
used,
we
yeah.
say that shit all the time,
You're a
in
wizard,
a not,
Harry.
yeah, in a not even
I mean, it's
relatable
on
situation.
my son's
Yeah.
nursery. His letterboard says you're a wizard, Bo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because obviously now seeing the movies, I'm reading the book and I'm going through the movie as I'm reading the book because I've seen the movie so many times, and that stuck out to me immediately.
Yeah.
Can't change that verbiage.
No, that's
That's a
yep.
fucking staple. I don't know what director made that decision, but fuck them.
Yeah.
That's just a placement of name. Another area that we'll get to that I noticed that was when they were doing the Sorting Hat and she was calling out the names. She said last name first. I was
Yeah.
like, "Fuck off!
Yeah.
This sucks."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got so
Yeah.
mad.
But it made sense with the alphabetical order then.
Right,
You
but
know,
they
how a
obviously
school would work.
There were moments where you were like, "Okay, I'm so happy they switched this in the
Yeah.
movie because I would have been uncomfortable." Like that's silly.
Yeah.
That's silly to do it that way, but yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. It makes sense when you're
I get it.
reading. I guess I get it. I'm so fucking pissed though.
But
One thing-
that whole scene with Hagrid was fantastically written, to be honest.
The first one, yeah.
The
'cause
first one of him
that's where
coming
the
in.
explanation of Voldemort comes in too.
and which
not in
doesn't
the-
in the movie.
No, that happens later. Well, not much later, but it still
Later
happens
enough.
later enough when
enough that
he's
it's a
Well, they're at
completely
like
separate-
the
before
restaurant,
Diagon Alley. Yeah.
Yep.
and
Yep.
like when he's like, I can't spell it, and blah blah blah,
Yep,
and he
yeah.
doesn't want to like, he doesn't know how much he should tell him. That all comes
Does he
out
say that
right
in the
away.
book? I don't think he says not being able to spell it in the book, does
Yeah,
he?
he
Yes.
does.
He
did.
does?
Yep.
All right, so now there's a
I wrote
little
down-
glimpse to the spelling wrong then.
I wrote down that was a moment where almost exact same dialogue was Hagrid explaining where Harry came from and his parents, which happened in the shack. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of very similar lines that
Yeah,
they
it's like,
kept.
didn't your mom and dad ever, tell you
Yeah,
where you learned it? They learned it
exactly,
all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that's so like he's so surprised that nothing's been told to him. And like, you guys are kidding me? He's the one, he gets mad at the Dursleys a number of times. Like where he's looking at them like motherfuckers.
But again, the betrayal
Like,
from every adult in your life that has hid things from you
Yep.
and shat on you.
And then
I
one that
mean,
was instructed probably that he had to stay at distance, but probably has more care for Harry than anybody else involved here now.
Hagrid would have taken him and raised him on his
Yeah,
own right
exactly.
in the shack on
And would have
frickin'
been probably a
Hogwarts.
very humble raising, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
Like, but like
Absolutely.
it's still
Right
yeah.
off the bat, Hagrid comes in and shows Harry that
There's love there.
Yeah, I care about you, and I'm gonna stand up for you.
Yep. and
Again,
that-
when
that-
we have a
that
story,
sticks to the book too.
Yeah.
Yep. No. But Hagrid is a staple through this book, and I'm sure through the rest, where he is like checking up on him, making sure he's the only one that's checking up on him. I mean, the other ones kind of, you can see there's a little like watching from a distance from Dumbledore, but Hagrid's the one that
he
you
was
can
just
see.
a pawn for Dumbledore in his endgame.
Well, and that's
No,
it's I think this will be good. I mean, this is coming later. All that, so we'll definitely have discussions on how that all plays out. I think that though, that with that eye looking at this, you get mad at Dumbledore at certain times, like, you asshole. Like, why are you doing this to this poor boy? But there was a bigger understanding there that needed to happen that maybe we Muggles just don't understand. All right,
Oh.
so that was I mean, there was the differences there, the longer time in the cabin, but I think it rolled right into chapter 5 the same as the books did, or the same as the movie did, just those subtle differences with
5
the
is
dialogue
Diagon
and
Alley.
stuff. Diagon Alley.
which I didn't
Yeah.
write really any. I didn't write any differences down.
There was
on.
Malfoy at Madame Malkin's
Besides Malfoy.
robes.
You meet Malfoy.
Yep.
I
Ice
had
cream cone.
Reminds Harry
Yes.
of Dudley.
yes,
What's
the
that?
ice cream.
The ice cream cone.
Ice cream
Instead
cone.
of surprising Harry with an owl.
With
he
an
surprised
owl.
him with an
Yep.
ice
So
cream
he bought
cone.
his own owl. It wasn't.
had-
Hagrid bought it for him, but
He didn't like
Later.
hold it up in the window.
yeah,
No, it was
that was
ice
an ice cream
cream.
cone.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, but he told Harry, he's like, well, I still need to get you a
Get you
birthday gift.
Yep.
Big
Yep.
yeah.
And
I
that
will
was
get you
where
an owl.
the owl.
Um,
Yep.
I had on their way to Diagon Alley on the train that Hagrid's knitting.
Knitting, yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is just like as minute like detail that doesn't matter, but that's
Yeah.
I'm just reading it like what?
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 Yeah. Yep.
Softens
It says-
him. and
Yeah,
I
which
love
he's a
softening.
very soft character,
It just
actually.
Yeah.
Hagrid
The whole
took up
thing-
2 seats and sat knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus
Yeah,
tent.
yellow. It's so cute.
So with Hagrid, you have this gentle giant. Is how they
and it's like
portray him.
doesn't you like the Hagrid that you see like in the movies is
Yeah.
not like what you visualize, but you're like, well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
Like that he would be that he
No.
would sit down and knit.
No.
But like at this time when you're like, okay, Harry's only known him for like a matter of hours, and he's sitting on this train that Harry had to help him, like he didn't understand Muggle money
Yeah.
and all that, so he had to help him, and now he's just like
Yeah.
chilling on the train knitting.
Yeah.
I think that's something J.K. Rowling does really good at, like immediately when she introduces the character,
Yes.
like you get their personality.
Well, because you
Personality
also
right
got to
away.
think. I mean,
Yeah.
when would Dumbledore ever have Hagrid leave Hogwarts or the Wizarding World?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never. His size, his everything
Yeah.
about him.
He's got to be stay.
Um,
Yeah.
But he had this connection with Harry that I think Dumbledore couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't deny it.
It wasn't
I-
on purpose either. It wasn't like that was part of his plan.
100%.
Right.
It was just an
100%.
organic
He was the one to
thing.
find him after the parents. It would make sense that he'd be the one to deliver him in that sense. Like
And
he
get him
delivered
established.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There's
also-
many times that he's delivered him kind of into situations. But
But did you notice in the
Lovingly.
book he brings him to Diagon Alley, but then he goes back.
yeah.
He
Yep.
goes back to
wrote
the
To the bar.
Dursleys for a month.
Oh, yes,
one
afterwards.
month.
Yep.
yeah,
yes,
that
yep.
Hagrid doesn't
for a
bring him-
frickin' loop.
You know, in the movie,
No.
Hagrid disappears, but they're like, you're led to believe they're kind of like at the train station or on their way, and he's
Yeah.
just like,
No,
follow your
it's
ticket.
as soon
I have to go
as
back to that hellhole.
Stick to
Yeah.
your ticket, Harry. Stick
Yeah.
to your
He
ticket,
He said
and
it
then he's
wasn't.
gone.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be. He said it wasn't as bad because they basically ignored him the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes,
But still,
they were
like,
It
scared.
still
and then
would
he
suck.
realized, oh, this sucks too.
Yeah,
Like,
yep.
I'm getting sick of being ignored.
Just
instead of-
ignored,
Yeah.
yep. One thing Hagrid said in Diagon Alley, when it was brought up about houses, because Malfoy brought up about houses and stuff, and everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers.
Yeah.
Was what brought up. A duffer
Fuck
being an
you.
incompetent or stupid person. He also mentioned Slytherin being bad, but that's in the movies too. But that these house biases that are in there, and you hear about them more in the books, I think, than in the movies. The movie Slytherin is obviously the one, but you don't hear him rip on Hufflepuff nearly as much.
You don't really
as
hear
it is
about
in the book.
houses in the movies outside of Gryffindor and Slytherin.
Yeah.
The only time you really hear about the houses really is like the Horcruxes of like the Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
whatever, you know,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
type of thing. But you don't really hear about characteristics of a house. That's Slytherin
Yeah.
But
and,
I saw that
and Gryffindor being really brave, right? Heroic.
No, and that's
That kind of
Gryffindor.
thing.
Gryffindor are definitely like the whole thing behind them are they're heroic. Why Neville was kind of confusing why he ended up in there. He says that even later, that but they're traits that each one of them have.
Neville's like
Neville's-
a Hufflepuff if I ever saw one.
Neville
don't
is
even
my
hear about that.
favorite character development
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In the
in the whole
movies.
all
in the
of it.
whole thing.
Even this like glow up in real life, that dude's a beautiful human being.
Oh my,
like
yeah,
he
dude.
definitely grew up into quite the man. I sound All right.
So I have some other questions.
Yeah, no, that's what. So, what was I gonna say here? Now I had a point I was gonna make.
Before you got all hot and bothered.
Yeah, I got all hot and bothered thinking of
Neville.
Neville. So, Mr. Ollivander remembers Voldemort's wand and says it ended up in the wrong hands. You don't really hear him say that in the book. He says he makes it sound like he still uses the same lines about like how it's curious,
Yep.
or like that it was the same.
How its brother. Gave
How
me
its
that
brother,
scar.
and then it did great things, terrible but great things. But he says in there that he would have never given him his wand had he known what would have happened with it. But then says afterwards that he did great things with it, even though they were terrible. But so he's acknowledging the power of that wand at that point, or just the wizard that uses it, I guess. And how the wand chooses the wizard. We see a lot more wands, piles of them that Harry goes through. Not much reactions at all. They don't not, but he's like, and you see Mr. Ollivander going through, and it's a much more timely, like the length of time he spends at the wand shop is a lot longer in the book than it is in the movie.
Yeah, you see him try like a few. It's actually it's
Yeah.
pretty funny scene
How
when
yep,
he's
and
like
it's not
trying
that
out
way in the book.
wands and like because it goes poorly and then he's like, oh nope.
No,
And
it
then
just-
Harry's just like,
Not
oh
that funny.
fuck, and like sets it down really
Yeah.
And
lightly.
Ollivander ripping on fucking Hagrid for his wand being broken.
Yep.
I have a question
Yep.
about that, and
Yep.
I had to Google it, and because obviously somebody else flagged this before this, but I haven't, and was like, wait. So he asked him, "Do you use it?" And then he's like really protective of his umbrella. I said, "Hold up. So if his wand was repaired, and if he can do magic with it, then why wasn't Ron's wand repaired in the
Repairable?
movie too?
Yeah.
In book 2." And then the theory,
Ron had a
that I
hand-me-down
found-
wand too.
I read that too. Yeah, like he's got Charlie's hand-me-down wand,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What the fuck? With all
Yeah.
the things that we know about wands, why? What are these
'cause the
special?
Yeah, but
lore-
that's why
the
Ron
lore's
sucks
been
at magic.
changed.
Yeah, but
Well, I think
the theory
Dumbledore like
is
fixed
Elder wand.
it,
Yeah.
but like he's not supposed to like that's not supposed to be like known.
But the
if
only
I
reason
Would probably
recall.
take a
It could be
powerful
fixed.
wizard to fix a wand.
a powerful wand to fix a wand because
Mhm.
it's the Elder wand. That's the theory that I looked up on. Yeah. So,
Oh,
if
so
that-
Dumbledore fixed it with the Elder Wand as well.
Correct.
But I think it's like
Right.
And
it's
turned it into an umbrella.
That's
hidden
the
in the
theory.
umbrella.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a cool fan theory.
I agree.
That's
I
a
hadn't heard
pretty
it until
decent
I
one.
flagged that, and I was like, wait.
Oh yeah, because in the movie he shoots the fire on with his
Yep.
Umbrella.
So he used
That's his wand, but I think it's not supposed to be like 'cause he's not supposed to do magic because he was expelled. But I think like Dumbledore like did him a solid.
Well, Dumbledore knew the truth,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
and that we'll talk about it. But that's another villain point for Dumbledore.
Oh, I
Just
know, I
saying.
know,
I'm
I
just
know.
saying.
It's not. It doesn't look good for
It's not
Dumbledore. The
looking
more
good
you,
for that guy.
he doesn't look like he. But it's coming from the background of the fact that he knew what needed to be done. That not that he
Fate and all that
yeah,
shit.
yeah. Because he's made to be this this omnipresent person, omnipotent, which means all knowing. Omnipresent is all everywhere, ever present, and omnipotent is all knowing, I believe. And that's what he kind of is portrayed as. Like he's all knowing, all seeing. Well, thanks for listening, all you vault dwellers and wastelanders out there. This was episode 1 of rereading Harry Potter. We will continue talking about book number 1 on episode number 2. Tune in and keep on reading.